I'm a college professor, and I'm going to teach you a method that you can use to cheat in all of your college courses. And this isn't the kind of lame cheating that your classmates do. With this method of cheating, you can never get caught. The first step in this method is to divide the course topics into the easy stuff and the hard stuff. If, for example, it's a math course, right? Some of the types of equations or whatever that you're going to have to do, those are the easy ones, right? So you write down all the easy ones throughout the semester. These are the ones that you know how to do. And then there's the hard ones, right? Those kinds of equations, when you get those questions, you don't know the answers to those ones. The easy ones you're going to handle yourself. But when it comes to the hard topics, the hard kinds of questions, these you're going to get someone else to do these for you. Now, before I explain how exactly that works, you can see already that this method of cheating does require some work. You need to be able to list off the topics in the course onto the easy list and the hard list, right? So in order to compile these lists, you're going to have to do the reading, and you're going to have to show up to lecture and take notes and all of that stuff. And you're going to have to, try to answer the various questions. And there's going to be the ones that you know how to answer, and they go on the easy list, and the ones that you don't know how to answer, and they go on the hard list. So you will have to put in that effort all along. But once you've got these lists, you can use this list to make someone else handle this stuff for you. Here's what you do. You take each item on the hard list, and you translate it into a question. For example, let's say that this is a logic course. Logic is a topic that we teach in the philosophy department here at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And so let's say one of the topics that you are struggling with is truth tables. Logic is an amazing course, by the way. You'll deal with things like truth tables. What are those? You have to take logic to find out. Truth tables are a kind of table where you've got some kind of expression at the top, right? That's the expression written in logical notation. You don't have to know what that means or whatever. And then you've got some stuff under it. You don't have to understand what's going on here. But the point is, this is a question that you might see on the exam, and you don't know how to fill in the table. That's why it's on the hard list. So what you do is, truth tables is listed on your hard list. You find some expression and you write this out. And the question is, how do I fill in the table, and why is that the correct way to fill it in? That's the question. So now you've taken all the items that were difficult, that you didn't understand, and you've translated each one of them into a question. You take your list of questions and you go to the professor's office hours, and you ask them all the questions on the list. And then they will explain the answers to them. And if you don't understand why those are the right answers, you ask them, well, why is that the right answer? And they explain why. And then you understand all the stuff on the hard list. You already understood all the stuff on the easy list. So you show up to the exam and you just fill in all the answers. You get them all right. Boom, done. Wait, that's not cheating. That's just taking the course and going to office hours. No, it is cheating, because it's just like, finding a student who's already taken the course and getting the answers from them. Except for you're not getting the answers from another student, you're getting the answers from a professor. And they're like teaching the course. So they're like the ultimate student who's already taken the course. So it is like cheating. It's like getting them to basically do it for you. Yeah, they basically do it for you because that's like literally their job. Yes, exactly. It's like literally their job. Okay, fine. You caught me. This isn't cheating. But it's like cheating in the following sense. It makes the course easier, right? It's a method for taking the course that will result more easily in getting a good grade. Every semester at every college and university in the country or maybe the world, students spend a lot of time trying to pick their courses and asking themselves, is this course going to be easy or hard? That's not the question that they should be asking. Of course, there are some courses that are easier than other courses, right? And some courses are harder. Of course, that's true. But just as important of a factor is the way that you take the course, the way that you approach doing the coursework. That, in very large part, decides how easy the course is for you. What matters, in very large part, is how you take the course. Here's an analogy or a metaphor or whatever, but it's a true story. When I was in college, I took a statistics course. This was back in the day. We had cell phones at the time, but they looked like this or whatever. This was back when I was in college. In this statistics course, we were permitted during the exam to use a calculator. But it had to be this kind of, simple calculator that could just do addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. That was it. That was the type of calculator that you could use. And of course, you had to bring your own. And there was this one guy in the course who showed up on the day of the exam, and he didn't have his calculator. And no one had a spare calculator, so he had to take the exam without a calculator. Guess what happened? He failed the exam. Duh. The exam was built and designed to be taken with a calculator. And so if you try to take that same exam without a calculator, then you've just made it way harder, impossibly hard, in fact. And that's what tons of students do if they don't, approach the course in the right way, the way that makes it easy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through some examples that illustrate specific ways that you can make your courses easier. Okay, I think I'm going to go through 4 examples. The first one is a class where you have to take some kind of exam. It could be a written essay exam where you scribble. This is what I used to do at Oxford and Cambridge, is you'd have 3 hours to write an exam. And you're in the room with a pen, and you're wearing your gown, your academic gown, it's a whole thing. Anyway, let's say you have an exam that's open note. You're allowed to look through your notes. If you have a course with an exam that's structured in this way, then there's an easy way to approach it and a hard way. The easy way is to take notes. If you have those notes that you've taken throughout the semester, and if you look over them before the exam, right? Then, because you looked over them before the exam, it'll remind you where everything is, right? So you'll get to a question about a certain topic, and then oh yeah, yesterday when I was reviewing my notes, I remember seeing my notes on this topic, and they're on the left side of a page. So then you just flip through your notes, you find that you're looking only at the left side of the pages, you find the right thing, you read it real quick, you write the right answer in. Boom, right? Easy. You're taking advantage of the fact that this course and this exam has an open note policy in order to make the course easier for yourself. The hard way to do it, the way to make this course hard, would be to not take notes. You don't take notes, and then you don't have those notes to look at during the exam. Or you don't take notes and then you try to borrow your friend's notes, but they wrote it, so you don't really know how to read them or don't know fully what they mean. And reading the notes because someone else wrote them doesn't trigger in your memory all of the extra details in addition to what's literally written, on the page in the notes. It's a disaster. You make this assignment way harder if you don't take notes. If you're taking an exam or doing some assignment where it's open book, you're allowed to look at the book. Well, the easy way to deal with a course with this sort of policy would be to buy the book or borrow it or own the book, right? Somehow get your hands on the book. That's the first thing. And then read it, right? Because if you've read it, you'll know where everything is. And the hard way, of course, is to not even get the book. And then you try to take these exams without the book. Or you haven't read it before, and so you're reading it for the first time during the exam, and you only have 3 hours or 5 hours or whatever. Makes it way harder. Some courses use an exam question bank. This occurred to me because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a professor at another university, and he uses in his courses an exam question bank. What that means is he gives his students at the beginning or throughout the semester, I don't remember how it works, he gives his students, let's say, 100 questions. He's going to put 20 of those 100 questions on the exam, and he doesn't tell them which 20 in advance. Then he's telling me he also holds these review sessions. The review sessions are just a time when he's going to be sitting in the classroom, and they can come in and ask him questions. A bunch of students show up, but they don't have any questions for him. And so after 20 minutes, he just left. They all left. They all went home. And he says to me when he's telling me this, he's like, if they had just asked me the questions from the question bank, I would have just told them the answers during the review session. So if you have a course with an exam question bank, here's the easy way to take this course. You go through all of the questions, right? And you try to answer them. You see if you know what the answers are. This is basically the strategy that I was suggesting that's sort of cheating, remember, at the beginning of this video. Because you can't go to the review session and ask 100 questions. You can't go through all 100 of them. There's just not enough time in the room. You're only there for 50 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes or whatever it is. You can't go through all 100. So you spend a little bit of time in advance going through the questions, picking out the ones you don't know the answers to, ask the professor in their office hours, in the review session, in whatever. They tell you the answers. Now you know the answer to every question. You show up at the exam. You see which 20 show up, and you just write the answers to those questions. Students try to actually cheat by stealing exams in advance, just so they can know what the questions are going to be. In this case, students are just given the questions in advance, and many of them take the hard way, and they don't use that. It's a gift and they don't take it. They just made the exam way harder than it needed to be. Okay, this just happened to me. The exam was coming up. The midterm, the final, whatever, one of the exams was coming up. And so I sent out a message to all of the students in the course. I wrote out a message, I typed it out, and it said two things. It said which topics would be covered on the exam, and it said like how to study, like what's an efficient way to study and prepare yourself for this exam. Those are the two things that I covered in this email. And then also, because I'm nice, I recorded a video, like a 4-minute video, where I was just talking into my webcam on my computer, basically saying the exact same stuff that I said in the email, right? So it's like a video for like the non-readers, you know? The non-readers who don't want to read like 2 paragraphs in an email, they can just click the 4-minute video and I will read it to them in the form of talking. Okay. 2 days before the exam, I get an email from a student asking what topics will be on the exam. Okay, I'm like really nice. You know, I don't say anything snarky. I'm not like, this was, you know, you didn't read your email or whatever. But the student didn't read the email. So I just explain it again. I just explain which topics are going to be on the exam and how to study for the exam. Okay, so this student now has that information 2 days before the exam instead of a week before the exam because they didn't read the email. Okay, so they're at a slight disadvantage, but at least they bothered emailing me. Think about all of those students who didn't read the email, didn't watch the 4-minute video, and therefore didn't know what topics were going to show up on the exam. If you don't know what topics are going to be on the exam, you have to study all the topics. So you just made this exam way harder than it needs to be. These are just 4 examples that I happen to come up with, but my main point, and all of these are supposed to try to illustrate that, is that whether a course is easy or difficult is determined in very large part by how you approach the course, how you take the course, what method you use, or whatever. I want to end with a little rant about this phrase that one hears these days, and the phrase is self-care. The idea behind this phrase is that you're supposed to take care of yourself. Fine, sounds good, but the question is how? How do you take care of yourself? How do you practice self-care? Well, one natural thought is that, you know, if you're exhausted, you've spent all these days working and studying and whatever, and stressful things are happening, right? And you have class the next day, and there's something that you're supposed to read before class the next day, but you decide to practice some self-care, and so you decide to scroll on the internet or watch a television show or something like that instead of doing the reading. You sort of give yourself the night off. That's self-care, right? No, that's not self-care. That's self-sabotage. Actual self-care would be forcing yourself to do the reading the night before class, and then forcing yourself to go to class and take notes, and then forcing yourself to review those notes after class, and do all of that little stuff along the way to make the course easier for yourself, right? Because if you do all of those things at the right time, if you take notes if there's going to be an open note quiz, or if you take notes at any other time, because notes are an amazing method for making, your coursework easier and more efficient. If you do all of this stuff, then you will make your courses easier. That's the point of this lecture video that you're watching right now, is that doing all this little stuff makes your courses easier. And that's the way to care for yourself, to practice self-care or whatever. What about getting guacamole on your burrito? Because guacamole costs more money if you opt for guacamole. What about that? That kind of self-care. Yeah, that's awesome. That's fine. I'm strongly in favor of that. Treat yourself, go for it or whatever. But skip the reading and just sort of watch television instead. That's not self-care. That's making your courses harder than they need to be. That's setting yourself up to fail. If you skip class or don't do the reading or don't take good notes or any of that stuff, you're actually making your courses harder. But if you do all of that little stuff, you take notes, you do the reading before class, you take notes during class, you review your notes after class while all of that information is still fresh in your mind, right? You set yourself up in all of these ways. That makes the course easier for you in the long run. It's massively less stressful, and there's nothing more self-care than that.